Dicebreaker, where today I am joined by the wonderful Maddie Cullen. Hello.
Hello.
Hi
How
there.
you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. How are you? I'm going to start a whole
I'm
conversation
good.
with you. But also, as well as Maddie, I'm joined by the wonderful Chase Carter's on the channel, everyone.
And howdy.
Howdy, indeed. So Chase is part of the editorial team. You may have seen Chase on the podcast, but today Chase is joining us to chat about the very exciting board game coming out, Jurassic World: The Legacy of Isla Nublar, by Funko Games. So Chase actually got the chance to sit down and give this a go, right, Chase?
That's right. And I'm sorry to step on your toes immediately, but I do have to correct you. It's Isla Nublar. I made the same mistake.
What?
So did everybody else who played this game, because it's a very specific pronunciation.
Oh, well, look, here's the thing. We've got the content for you. We've got the info. And we've got the corrections. Yeah, we're spitting facts right now today with Chase. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Legacy of Isla Nublar and Chase's experience while playing it, and we'll be able to jump in with some fun and maybe annoying questions. We'll see, Chase.
Great.
But yeah, how did you find it? What was it like?
Yeah. So I should start. I played it last weekend, a couple weekends ago. Last weekend maybe. And so disclosure, Funko Games, who owns Prospero Hall, who is the developer on this game, they did pay to fly me out and to stay in LA for the weekend while we played board games for 6 hours, which was a lot of fun.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah. I got to play with some other people from the board game industry on the sort of news covering side. And we played through 2.5 of the 12 missions, including the tutorial and 2 others. To sort of give us a good overview of how this game actually plays. So for those who may not have heard of it, it is a legacy board game from Prospero Hall, the folks behind Horrified, Fast and Furious, Highway Heist, and a bunch of other they're basically known for pretty good licensed board games.
Yeah.
And this is one of the biggest properties that they've worked with, and it's also definitely the biggest game. It's an 8-pound box of a legacy game.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's massive. It's heavy. It is almost the weight of one of my cats. Sort of picked it up. It definitely doesn't squirm quite as much as one of my cats.
You picked it up, you cradled it, you felt at home. Yeah, it was great.
But yeah, so it is a legacy. It's a collaborative legacy board game for 2 to 4 players. We had 4 around the board, where you are going through basically from before the events of the original Jurassic Park movie and the book by Michael Crichton, and playing through, ostensibly, we didn't really get to a lot of this, the whole franchise, and then maybe some extra stuff. You begin on Isla Nublar, sort of planning out what the park is going to look like. And one of the big sort of hooks of this game is that as you make decisions, as you build facilities around the sort of sectioned board, those facilities will stay there as you head into your other adventures. And you have to work off of the locations that you picked, where you've set up dinosaurs, where you've built different infrastructure as you go forward into other missions. So depending on how you do, it could really help or really hurt. So that's the big hook of this. It's one of those games where there's no turn order. Everyone just has a sort of action pool, and you all take your actions sort of you can sort of devise who wants to do what and where, and then it'll go into the dinosaurs that are on the island get to do their turn, and then other events will happen. Each mission has certain objectives. The first one, which is the tutorial, that's replayable. And that sort of it's actually really cool. So I'll pause here that the adventures themselves, or the different sessions that you go through, their rule books, their specific rule books are styled off of 80s, 90s adventure comics. So it's got the little 2 cent up in the corner, and it's
my God.
Jurassic Park, yeah. And it's got a nice, the illustrative style on the rule books are really cool. I'm a big fan of those. And the first one, the whole framing device is that Dr. John Hammond is on the helicopter ride across the ocean to the park, and he's asleep and he's dreaming of his perfect park. And so the first tutorial, which kind of teaches you the baseline rules of the game, is replayable because it's just a dream. It's just John Hammond dreaming of where you're going to scout out the different parts of the island to find out what dinosaurs are already there, because you've already released some dinosaurs into the park. And so you're sort of tracking their movement, finding out where they are and where the best place to set up the visitor center and then the genetics lab are going to be. Those are the 2 main things you got to do at first. And then as you go into 1 and 2, you start introducing some new rules. You start making some decisions that cannot No, it is only one
Okay,
dream-based
right.
mission. After that,
Okay.
it is boots on the ground, adventures out in the field, scientists in the lab, and these decisions are final. And
Ooh.
it's finalized in a very cool, and honestly, like the kid in me really loves this. There are sticker sheets, and you will pull off stickers. Like I'm talking cool, like big, like 8x11 sticker sheets, and you will pull off stickers and you will slap them on your board, and that's final. There's no pulling.
Yeah.
It's not one of those peel, like you can peel it back up. That is done. So you
None of
gotta,
that flimsy stuff. Just the real deal.
yeah, this is like actual like adhesive on cardboard. So like whatever decision you make is final, and you'll be dealing with those decisions for the next 11 or so adventures. And so as you go through the different ones, they'll have different objectives. Like the first one that we did that wasn't a tutorial was all about like tracking the dinosaurs and trying to like find like where they're moving to sort of like start doing dinosaur research, and also to save some there was like a helicopter or plane crash that had some personnel, like park personnel, and they're lost on the island. So you have to go and find them and bring them back safely. Whether you got to find them first, make sure they don't just get lost, and then as the dinosaurs sort of roam around the park, you have to make sure that they don't get eaten by the dinosaurs.
No.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. I mean, even just like, so immediately I feel like they didn't do enough to stop people from getting eaten. So I'm glad that that's something that you are, it's at the forefront of this adventure.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's in the premise, like it is a island full of dinosaurs that should be like high on their concern. And the way that you do that as players is that you can lead the dinosaurs around. You can herd them. Now, herding takes like 2 characters in the same space and no one can be damaged. So there's very specific conditions, because herding a dinosaur means that you basically get control of this creature, at least for one turn, and negate what it would otherwise do. And those actions are defined by like an AI that is dealt by like cards. And this is actually one of the cool things I like about this, is that like the dinosaurs have a turn that goes after all the characters have used their actions. And depending on a certain card that's been placed like in their zone, there are 6 zones on the island and the dinosaurs will move around. So whatever the card says that both herbivores and carnivores will do in the zone, they'll do that unless they've been herded. If they've been herded, they ignore all that, which is nice because sometimes your herbivores will just like wander off into some corner of the island and maybe get into trouble. And your carnivores might wander, as we saw in the first movie, directly into the visitor center.
They could do
and
that.
just cause a lot of mischief. Yeah, we actually had one of those scenes where the T-Rex just came into the visitor center, like chased someone in there, you know, the banner falling and all that sort of stuff. Like it was very cool. But what I like about it is that you don't know this knowledge up front. You have to go into a zone and scout it out to discover what the dinosaurs are going to do, and then you flip that card over. And then you might be halfway into your mission. You're like, oh, we've got a plan. And then you flip it over and it's like, the T-Rex is going to hunt twice. And we have to immediately deal with that. Yeah.
That's a really cool mechanic. I really like that.
Yeah. So these action cards will tell you what the dinosaurs are going to do. So you might have your, you know, herbivore that just wanders off to the one side of the park. The carnivore might go hunting, which if there's nothing for it to hunt sort of in there, whether that be a player or another like dinosaur, it disappears and will just go to another zone. You just lose track of that pack of velociraptors just disappear and show up somewhere else, which is not what you want.
No, I mean, that basically is what happens in the films. They will just they will just wander off and do their thing. How does nobody notice them? I'm very afraid of Jurassic Park.
As you should be. Yeah, we have seen a whole movie of why it's a bad idea to lose track of the dinosaurs. So
yeah.
Yes.
Well, there goes my birthday present for you.
Oh, well, no, so I'm sure you come up with something else. It's fine. So they wander off and you have to try to herd them back, or is it maybe a good idea to make sure that you keep somebody with the dinosaur so that they can try and eat you rather than...
Yeah, it's like a sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's part of the rub, is that like, so each character has 2 action and then there's like 1 free action that any character can take. And one of the big sort of like decisions that you're going to be making as a group is deciding what is the best use of your time in those actions. It could be leading that T-Rex away so you know it's not going to cause problems. But what that means is that you're not going to be, say, going into the genetics lab and trying to sequence some new genes, or you're not going to be going into the mountains and grabbing that lost researcher or architect and leading them back, which is one of your objectives. And if you don't finish objectives, like each there's also like I should say, each round, there's like 5 rounds in a session. And once those 5 rounds are over, the session is done. Each round will sometimes have specific objectives that you need to complete that round, or you suffer a consequence. And consequences are what can lead you into an automatic failure state. If you have more than 5 consequences, which are these little like triangular tokens on the board, and every time you suffer consequence, you flip one over. Most of them are 1 is a 0, and 1 is a 2. So you really need to keep track of those and manage those. So that means that you have to be focusing on both the short-term and long-term objectives, which means that maybe leading that T-Rex away from the visitor center is going to mean you suffer a consequence. And that just means you might have to make a risky decision and say, we're just going to kind of let the T-Rex roam and see what happens.
But like, you're going to suffer a consequence if they go wandering into the visitor center. I don't understand.
Hey, the visitors came to Jurassic Park. What were they expecting?
They signed the release waivers.
Exactly. That was really interesting there, like a balance between kind of like safety and progress. I like that. I love a good risk-taking time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. One other thing that we ran into is that you want the dinosaurs to not die. And that means you don't want to just like kill off the velociraptor, the T-Rex either. They will suffer harm and they will attack each other. And if they do, you will suffer consequences for having your dinosaurs. Basically, they like represent like a pack or like a herd of dinosaurs. And if they take too much damage, they basically have to go and be rehabilitated. They're not gone for good. They will come back, at least not that we played. That might happen later on, because you will unlock new dinosaurs down the road.
Yeah, I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, Chase, but I believe they are called dinosaurs, not livnosaurs. So, like, surely they have to die. Sorry, please carry on.
No. Fair point.
Thank you. Now I've completely thrown you off with my stupid joke.
No, it's a good joke. Yeah, we actually got to a point where we were like, should we just let the velociraptor kill the T-Rex? Like, it's very close. And then we were just like, oh man, we're at 4 consequences. If we let that happen, that might be game over. So we had to very quickly like scramble, go basically be like the parent that takes the 2 dino kids and just like pushes them apart, be like, all right, y'all go to your rooms, settle down. You're not fighting anymore. This is over. Which meant that we didn't get an extra objective done because we had to immediately turn to one of these other objectives. And I think that creates a really interesting tension where like you need to not attack these dinosaurs, which means you don't want to be in their face, but they're resources, like they are investments in the park, and you need to keep those investments alive.
Yeah.
It was really interesting.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I mean, like, I think of they are products, like as you say. Yeah, no, the amount of money that they would have put into these dinosaurs, it completely makes sense that they would want to keep them alive, these little babies of theirs, you know.
No dinosaurs, no park. Then it is really game over.
Exactly.
Yep.
Just what Jurassic World doesn't have the same look to it.
Yeah, at that point, all you have is just people showing up to ogle and eat Malcolm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's fine too, right? Yeah.
I'd pay for that ticket.
You got a park, yeah.
Definitely.
There's something there.
Yeah.
Go on,
ahead.
Liv.
No, Maddie, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying, you're saying so if you failed your objectives, it could be game over. And obviously, you've already put all the stickers down. So can you like start over, or do you kind of like, what do you have to do?
So yeah, that's an interesting point. So beyond that first tutorial mission, which if you fail, you can start over, or you can choose to do over again if you didn't like what you got, and you can sort of just replay that until everyone feels comfortable. Cool. But once you get into like the first actual mission on where you fail forward, you will play through the game. You will have like early on, you sort of like do the things, like one of the first things that you do in each mission is you have these portfolio, and this is a really exciting part. You have these sort of like envelope portfolios that you crack open and you pull out all these new pieces. So you get like the sticker sheets and the new cardboard punch outs and everything that you even get stickers that you will put in the rule book as new rules are like sort of introduced. There are these little like dotted square boxes in the actual big rule book that you will start to fill in as you introduce new ongoing rules, which is really cool. I think that's a really nice way to do that. But if you fail a mission, essentially you will get some reward. You won't get everything, but you will get some progress that you will get to invest into, like, say, enhancements or training your park employees so that they can begin to help you out. But you won't get as much as you would if you would have succeeded, which we didn't play enough missions to kind of see how that affects the momentum of the game. But it is cool that, like, you don't have to just redo it, or you don't get to, like, just scrap it. And it's not like, say, what other legacy games do where there's just a sort of point value that you tally up at the end. This, like, really sort of, like, materially affects what you're going to be able to introduce to your park. So a success might mean you get more research, which means you get to unlock new sort of, like, skills on this, like, big skill tree thing that you, honestly, that also has, like, a bunch of scratch off. They give you, like, a big raptor claw, like a fossilized plastic raptor claw that you use to, like, scratch off. Like, character cards have, like, other abilities, and you can use research to unlock new abilities on the character card, and you scratch them off. There's a big sheet of, like, research stuff that you can scratch off little parts to, like, unlock new resources or abilities and stuff like that. It's all very cool the way they do that. There's a lot of, like, theatricality involved, which I appreciate in a game like this. But failure just means that you don't get quite as much as you would if you succeeded. So, I mean, it does feel bad, but it also, like, at least for our group, it galvanized us to, like, do better the next time, because we got to see a glimpse of, like, what we could have unlocked if we just really thought about it a little bit more, which I think is it is much more a sort of carrot than a stick.
Yeah, and that's good. It's a learning experience. You learn if your T-Rex ate a bunch of people, being like, okay, let's not do that next time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah, so I guess, like, does the game kind of account for you, you know, maybe not doing as well at the start? Does it, like, are the stakes a bit lower, or is it just, like, completely, like, the same level throughout, or does it get harder as the game goes on, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, it definitely felt like, I have a piece, a sort of, like, impressions piece up on the site, which you can read, dicebreaker.com. And you can, I talked about it as, like, the way that they sort of introduce rules to you was the metaphor I used. It's like they taught you to build a car by giving you one piece of the engine at a time, but it never felt like I was building a car. It felt like I was getting a new toy and looking at it and then playing with it. And every time I did that, I was just building a larger and better engine with those tools. So those first 2.5 missions was really a sort of gradual introduction of what became core rules, core sort of verbs that you could use in the game, and also, like, complicating what we thought we already understood. Like, very much, it got to the point where, like, all right, we got this on lock. We understand, like, I know exactly what to do. I was playing John Hammond, and John Hammond, like, it's really good at, like, using his ability to move other people around the park. So basically, I just sat my old man bones on the helipad and gave everyone else orders on what to do, which felt right for him until I got chased into the visitor center by a T-Rex. But
oh wow, we talked about it and it happened to you. Wow, unbelievable. Are there, like, specific characters who, like, are probably, like, a better combination that work together, or, like, is everyone's ability, like, you know, useful in itself?
Oh no, like oh, so you're saying, like, two characters that, like, work well together?
Yeah, kind of thing. Or they're, like, a specific strategy that might be, like, overpowered or anything like that.
Not that we came across. The one thing that you will realize is that, like, you will hear a little bit about, like, the mission beforehand, and so you will maybe want to choose some characters that, like, sort of fit. Like, Hammond seems like a very good overall. Like, he's always going to pair well just because he can move people around, but he doesn't have a specialty really. Not like, say, like, Dr. Wu, the like, lead geneticist. Like, he's really good at doing something that I haven't talked about yet because this game is just really complex. Both the visitor center and the genetics lab have mini games that you'll go in there, and there's, like, a different sideboard where you go in. There's, like, rooms. And so in the visitor center, you are unpacking, like, supplies to get like to, like, certain, like, necessary items that you can get, because there are item cards that you can use as, like, free actions. And if you're in the genetics lab, you are sequencing DNA to sort of, like, unlock research points, which could help give you a different dinosaur. Dr. Wu is just, like, really good at that genetics lab. Robert Muldoon, the hunter, you know, clever girl, Australian guy, he's really good at, like, herding dinosaurs and, like, dealing with them. He's your guy if you just need to keep a dinosaur in place. There is a new character, Alessandra. It begins with an O. Oh my gosh, I can't remember her name, but Alessandra. She's Yeah, she's a new character just for the game, and she's the engineer. She's really good in the visitor center as well as like building buildings, constructing buildings. So that they are so specialized that I don't feel like there's like a sort of like pairing that works well.
Okay.
You really just need to like read the mission and then decide who you're going to bring. That's like the first bit of like sort of like planning that a group needs to do when you go into it.
Okay, because
So
I was
can
going
you-
to. Oh, go ahead, Maddie.
So can you change characters before the missions, or once you've picked a character, do you stick with them for the whole game?
That's what I was
No,
gonna
you
ask.
can change. Yeah, you can change around. It's not like you don't have like a character per se. You were just like, it's almost like choosing a skill set or like a loadout of abilities as you go into each mission. You are not locked to those characters, because as you go through, you will begin to unlock new characters from the franchise and all their stuff like that as new facilities and new stuff gets added, and so new specialties will become available. So you might want to change up. That's very much a part of the game. It's just like changing up who you're bringing in.
That's really cool.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, so you said you have the 5 rounds, and then that's just it. That's the end of the mission, right? And then you just keep progressing like that. Is it like, does it certain later missions, do they have more numbers of rounds or something like that? I know you only played like the 1 maybe, but
Yeah, we played 1.5. So
Okay.
of like beyond the tutorial, we played 1.5. But I feel like at least the way that like Prospero Hall folks explained it, yeah, you're not going to get like more, because the board itself has like little like portions for those cards to be placed on.
Okay.
So it's always going to be 5 rounds.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never actually played a legacy game before. It's something that I've always wanted to do though, but like it does break my heart that like once you've played it once, you're not going to be able to play it again. I know that's what a legacy game is, but still, how do you think it kind of like accounts for that to like make it like a worthwhile experience? I know that's a broad question, but
Yeah, no, I mean, it is a concern that I have as well, because it's definitely like one of those sort of like criticisms that get lobbed at legacy games for those that like haven't played them or just maybe don't enjoy them as much as other folks. Like I know they've got a contingent of people who just like really enjoy that sort of like investment in an ongoing experience, and I totally understand that. Prospero Hall has said that like they've designed this game such that when you get to the end, it should produce, no matter how bad you did or how well you did, it should produce a game that you want to bring to the table just to play like that set. Like no more legacy mechanics. You're not going to be progressing or unlocking anything else, but it is still a good enough board game that it will want to hit your table just on its own. And I'm not sure. I can't say one way or another just because I haven't played that far, but I'm enjoying it as a legacy game. I can already see that sort of investment in the decisions and investment in like wanting to see how it goes, in later missions. But yeah, I will also be interested to find out how people like it as a sort of finished game. I will say like the tutorial mission is really great at both introducing the sort of basic mechanics of the rules, but also sort of like teaching those who are unfamiliar with how a legacy game might operate with the sort of like baseline sort of understandings of what that, like, placing certain things and be like, this is what we're going to do next round. Do you like the placement of that? Without having to like lock you down to decisions before you feel like you're ready to like pull the trigger on that. So that first mission I think is a really good, like sort of like, if basic board game that you could just break out and play if you want to until you feel your group feels ready to go. I'm not so sure about like what's going to come out the other end. I'm really interested to see.
Yeah,
definitely.
That sounds like it is like a really good kind of intro start. It sounds like a really fun tutorial, and I like the idea of like different rules coming like throughout. So it kind of like maybe as like a new person coming to a legacy game, you kind of be like, okay, I'm easing into it. I'm getting used to this concept.
Yeah,
definitely. Do you think that like just fan people who are not fans of board games, people who are fans of just Jurassic Park will get like a kick out of this?
Oh, totally. I mean, it does a really good job of sort of interpreting that series as far as like, it is not just a sort of like crass, like it's all your favorite characters. And like, look, they're all here. Like you're going to be progressively unlocking familiar faces, which do feel good whenever you open that portfolio and you pull out. I can't say specifically who you unlock where, but I will say that you will pull out faces that and you'll be like, oh man,
my God,
it's this
you
person. I cannot wait to see how they play on the board. And so I think that's the important part, is it is not just a sort of face for the sort of pop culture value. It is more like how have they adapted this into a sort of mechanical use within the game? And I think that's really important for one, bringing Jurassic Parks into board games, but also people who just like board games and maybe aren't sold on it just on the Jurassic Park
premise.
skin alone, that premise, will still be like, I want to see how they've done this mechanically. Like, what do these feel like to play within a mission? I feel like both people will be satisfied.
Yeah, no, that's a really good balance. I'm personally quite excited by it. I mean, I've never, as I've said before, Jurassic Park scares me. I love horror films, and I know this is kind of like a thriller, but like Jurassic Park in particular, can't deal with it. It's very
scary.
Yeah, very scary. It's just like, what are those big lizards doing here? Who brought them here? But like, I think I would definitely be interested in giving this a go. Maddie, what do you think? Is this going to be up your street?
I love the sound of this. Again, I love Jurassic Park, and this just sounds really fun. It just sounds like a really enjoyable ball game, even if it wasn't a franchise that I was familiar with. Like, I really like the sound of it, and kind of like building up on each other and unlocking dinosaurs just sounds really fun. I love that.
That was honestly the most exciting part. Again, I can't say what dinosaurs you unlock when, but going into that second mission, like part of the thing they bust out is like you have like these little like boxes that are about 2 inches high. You know, it has a miniature inside, and there were 3 boxes, and we got to randomly choose one of those 3, and then you crack it open and you just like pull a miniature out and get to see what it is. And like that's part of those theatrics that I was talking about. Like they've nailed the way that you're going to unpack this thing. And I talked to the Prospero Hall guys, and they said like they said pack order was really important. So like when you pull open the box, there's like a paper who says like, read this and then stop and don't go forward until you've read and understand this. And then you pull out the rule book. Like everything is just physically arranged for the experience of bringing it out at the table. Like it's not just a jumble of stuff thrown in there. Like it is specifically built for a sort of theatrics at the table, which I think people are going to really like.
That's really
amazing.
Cool.
That sounds like such attention to detail that I don't think I've seen in a board game. So yeah, I would love to experience that.
Definitely.
It's amazing.
Can I go back to the miniatures? What are they like? What's the quality of the miniatures like?
So they are unpainted miniatures. They are colored specifically for like the herbivores are green and the carnivores are red, and then the Dr. Wu genetic freak, the specials, they're called the Dr. Wu specials are purple. Which are when you get into like some of those. We didn't get to see any of those, but I assume it's like the Allosaurus or whatever, the like from number 2, this like T-Rex Prime or whatever the hell he created.
Mega T-Rex.
The Mega T-Rex that he unleashed on the world. But the miniature quality is pretty nice. Like it's all like, it's not just a dinosaur. It's not just like, you know, one of those things that you would find like in a kid's little like toy pack. Specifically like the velociraptors are coming out of a refrigerator, like the industrial refrigerator.
Cool.
So it's like it's like this big square box, and it's like their claws like opening the door and 2 heads poking out.
Spooky.
Amazing.
The T-Rex is like whipping around so that you can sort of, its full body is just sort of like curved around this like big like canopy of trees and stuff like that. So it's like they're like tiny little mini dioramas. It's not just the dinosaur, it's a little bit of their landscape or where they were in the film franchise as well. And they're on little pedestals, like small little pedestals or stands. So they all are about the same height, and they definitely like sort of like they dominate the board because all of the characters are just like little standees. You have like a little cardboard standee that you set them in. So you are going to feel the size difference between your character bouncing around the island and this immense lizard just sort of like careening through the trees.
That is terrifying.
That's so cool.
That is wonderful. The genre of this game, I assume it's just kind of like adventure, fantasy kind of thing. Is there like a hint I'm going back to the horror again, but is there like a sense of like tension and like horror kind of mingled in there? This is just a question for me.
So I will say generally not, at least like not into like the sort of overall experience. Okay. I will say that like the 2 missions that we played definitely had different tones. So I can certainly see them introducing mechanics or certain restrictions that would make it a little bit more tense, a little bit more of a thriller, sort of like scary thing. But just on its own, like because everyone takes their turns together and you can sort of like collaborate, it is much more of a sort of like strategic game. Cool. And that tension only comes down to like what sort of consequences are you going to, like honestly the most tension was dice rolls. It was like what are the dice going to show up? So I would say just like, you know, broadly no, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of those later missions do sort of dip into that thriller territory, especially if we're going to play through the franchise. Obviously, hopefully there is going to be one mission where like I have seen in promotional material, at least, that the kids are going to show up, right?
I was going to ask about the kids. I was like, is there going to be like the kitchen scene or something like
I don't know if they're characters or if they're going to be like little followers that you have to protect, but I can definitely see like them being lost or getting trapped in the visitor center, maybe being one of those scenarios where the sort of like thrill, the sort of like scary tension really ramps up. So I bet you could probably get something like that somewhere in those 12 missions.
Yeah.
I'd be pretty scared if that was happening. I feel like that would horrify me a little.
I could never be an adventure movie protagonist. I would give up. I would just
I'm out. Done.
This is easier. Just
curl up in a cupboard. Yeah.
Walk out into the middle of the rain, like, go, take me away, T-Rex. I'm done. I'm done.
I always would want the dinosaur to eat me first. I'm like, no way do I want to be the last person like creeping around.
Oh yeah, I mean, it would be my arm that flops onto the roof of the Jeep and scares all the other characters.
I'd be happy
Absolutely.
with that. Yeah.
Oh no, I was gonna ask. Okay, but like for really though, if like all of us, the Dicebreaker team, we're in Jurassic Park, who would survive? Do you think? Who would do well? Who would not? At all?
That's a really interesting question. I'm probably the least qualified to answer because I've been here the least amount of time. So I've got about a week of personality knowledge to go on.
You've got the vibe checks from us. It's fine.
Then I feel like you would do well. I can see you getting pretty far.
I would just burrow underground and it would be fine. I feel like Mian is more wily than we give her credit for. I feel like she would be able to like sneak around.
And she does love birds, which are the descendants of dinosaurs. So she maybe understands them better on a sort of level.
Yeah, exactly. She can speak to them one-on-one. It'll be great.
Yeah.
She'll start controlling them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Editor Matt Jarvis would survive to the middle of the movie and then make a heroic sacrifice to let all the rest of us go.
Of course.
Yeah. Classic Matt Jarvis.
True.
Wheels might make it out the other side, honestly, if through sheer determination alone. I think he would just like grit, bear down, and just sort of like spite only make it to the end of whatever movie that is.
Absolutely. He would get out the other side and he'd be like, did it, and then collapse. And that would be it. Chase, I think you would do pretty well, especially with your you've got the experience now. You've played the Legacy game.
After this weekend, I'm ready. Let's go to the park.
Let's go.
All right, if there's a dinosaur breaks out, I know who I'm sticking with now. I know what my emergency safe plan is, who to protect.
Exactly. And it's that attitude, Maddie, is why I think you do pretty well. But yeah, Chase, any like final thoughts that you'd like to share with us? Or
Yeah, I feel like I would be remiss if I don't touch on like the sort of like the largest looming criticism that I have of my experience, which is I don't think if you've played legacy games before, or honestly like a lot of other collaborative board games, there is the element of sort of like quarterbacking, where like there's a sort of like optimal play, and so someone is going to, especially if there's less experienced people at the table, will sort of like, no, this is what you should do, or like you really should move here. That's what we call quarterbacking. I don't think that this game does enough to sort of dissuade people from doing that. It sort of just has to be part of the politics of your group, and you need to be able to like sort of suss that out at the table. At least at the beginning, the little bit that I've played, there were two people, and I will say I was among the two that were sort of like taking control, sort of fell into a natural sort of like, we know what's best, here's what you should do. And luckily the other folks at the table, like they were okay with that. We sort of like checked in like, hey, don't let us quarterback too much.
Yeah.
But there's not enough like in the sort of like mechanics or like the rules of the game that sort of like keeps that sort of behavior in check. So I will say, like, if you're going to bring this to the table and you know that one of your group members or you yourself are someone who is inclined for that sort of thing, you're going to have that sort of conversation explicitly, because the game is, I don't think, going to help out with that.
Okay. Yeah. So check in with yourself. Maybe realize some things about yourself, and then before you play this game, check if you're quarterbacking.
Yeah, be real honest. Have a good long hard look in the mirror and be like, is this me?
Am I guilty of this? But yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think that's been a nice little rundown, Chase. Thank you so much for giving us this information. Really appreciate that. Of course. And and of course, if you want to read Chase's full opinions in article form, you can check out dicebreaker.com, where we have not only that article about Jurassic World, the Legacy of Isla Nublar, we have all sorts of other articles by Matt Jarvis, Alex Mean as well. If you have enjoyed chatting with us on the YouTube channel, you can always go ahead and like and subscribe. That's really cool and really helps us out a lot. If you like us so much that you're like, oh, maybe I should join Dicebreaker Plus, then you can check out down below where there's a join button and you can come hang out with us there. We do stuff that's not always tabletop, but it is always a ton of fun. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I've been Liv. This has been Chase and Maddie.